You're thinking about buying an investment properties, and I'm gonna give you my story. When I first started into real estate, the reason I got into real estate is actually understanding the whole investments, understanding what it takes to buy real estate properties, what I need to do. And then I got into it and I actually got cap rates and understood the 1% rule, but when I was very young. And knowing that I wanted to buy the first investment property, and I went through so many scenarios. I had like 20, 30 different properties that I went through the cap rate, went through the 1%. I actually didn't know about the 1% rule down the road. And really it was me understanding the cap rate. So when you're an investor or a realtor thinking about getting into real estate and actually trying to buy your first investment properties, the biggest advice that I could give you is really test out each property that is out there. There are programs, you could hit me up. I'll give you this free Excel sheet that you could utilize, so that way you could, look at the expenses, the incomes, and what your cap rate's gonna be, what your 1% is gonna be. Test out 10 to 20 of these properties, so that way you would know which actually makes sense. Recently, we bought a property right here in Rochester, and that's where we're starting to invest right now. I wanted to first buy a whole bunch of them. So I went through a couple of them, and then I said, you know what, I'm gonna put a pause on this because I'm not physically there at the property. It's not around me. I'm actually in a different state. And once I started getting the expenses, I started noticing that there were expenses that I didn't anticipate. Now I'm going to do an end of the year report to help me understand exactly what my return on my investment is. So when you're buying your first investment property, understand, do different scenarios, go through the basic Excel sheet, and knowing what your cap rate is going to be, knowing what your maintenance is going to be, prepare for that. And once you find that first investment property, go ahead and put an offer. Go view the property if you don't want to put the offer in, because again, as a young person that never had an investment property, and my father did buy a property, but he bought it at a time which had a high interest rate. Really didn't understand the cap rate either. So go through the scenario of actually looking at different properties, going through the scenario of understanding what the cap rate is, what the 1% rule is, and the what if scenarios too as well. Then start looking at the properties, right? Get a realtor, or if you're a realtor yourself, go view those properties too as well. Then actually go ahead and put an offer in. Go through the whole motion and see what that would look like. Now, I could tell you one advice that's really, really critical. When you do find a good investment properties, do not go cheap. Don't start giving them $100,000 off the market value or $50,000 off the market value. Go in a reasonable price that the seller could understand, because again, that's also an investor too. They know the property inside out. So go in there with a reasonable price, so that way you could have the best deal on your side, because you already did the numbers too as well. And this will actually help you get closer to your first investment property, and also utilizing, the mortgage lenders, inspectors, speak to an attorney. Everybody's gonna give you their personal experience. Me, myself, for the investment property that I'm talking about right now, I actually got a management company that I connected with, and the manager over there, he actually told me I will go out there, view every single property moving forward, and I will tell you yes or no. So that's where the realtors who's actually experienced in this business, could really help you propel forward. Make sure that the realtor has investment properties, has done their own P&L, which is profit and loss and cap rates, as well as know the 1% rule. Do not work with a realtor that doesn't understand this at all and doesn't have an investment property, because they won't stand the element of the extra expenses that might come. There's always going to be this other extra expense that we might not know of. For example, me, this investment property that, personal story is that, they're having a lot more cockroaches and repairs that being done that I anticipated. So I know now that I actually have to either remove the tenant and renovate the property and get my return on my investment, because I could go ahead and rent it out for more, or I won't have these problems. Hope this was helpful. Have an amazing day.